Mike Moore Media.
In our studio today, Seth Woodall, attorney at law. He has offices in Eden and Madison. Seth M. Woodall and Associates. We had our first podcast in February, and good to have you back today. Hey, Seth.
Hey, Mike. How are you today?
I'm doing just great. Well, I know on that first podcast, you talked about some of your main areas that you work in right now, criminal, traffic, and real estate. So I wanted to take maybe a closer look at real estate and how you're involved in that, and maybe some advice and some things you can tell us about that. First off, what does a real estate attorney do?
Well, there's a lot of things that a real estate attorney does. So typically when you think of a real estate attorney, you're thinking about the purchase or sale of real estate. Mm-hmm. And what we normally do for lenders or for buyers is do a title examination where we perform a title search, determine who owns property, what liens may exist, and we certify title for a period of typically 30 years back. And then we'll handle the closing documents, making sure that everything is signed. And typically that's to ensure that the buyer is buying what they think they are buying, mm-hmm. and that lenders are protected from a lien standpoint in the event that the buyer fails to repay the mortgage.
Okay. Now, let's talk about liens, because I've never really been directly involved in that. So how does that work?
Well, there's a number of ways that liens can show up on real estate. The primary type of lien that you would see in a real estate title search would be a mortgage. So when you go to the bank and you borrow money to purchase property, or you refinance or get an equity line to do improvements at your home, the bank will record a deed of trust, which is what is commonly referred to as a mortgage. Mm-hmm. And that mortgage acts as a lien to ensure that the property cannot be sold or conveyed without first paying off the bank.
Okay. I hear the term real property in some things. What is real property?
Well, in layman's terms, I would just say that real property is the dirt and everything that's permanently affixed to the dirt. Homes, structures, anything affixed, timber, that would be included in real estate.
Okay. And then what personal property? What are we talking about there?
When you're talking about personal property, typically that's something that's movable. Motor vehicles, furniture, outbuildings that are not permanently affixed to real estate, mobile homes that have not been detitled and not permanently affixed with a foundation to real estate. All of those would be included as personal property.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's go back to a moment ago. You said in Wentworth you're doing title searches and working on some of these cases. So what's involved there? I mean, all of this is public record. It's in the books in Wentworth. Is that right?
It is. So Wentworth has both books and computer documents that you can actually search from 1996 current through the computer. Everything back past 1996 is in books over there. So basically what you're looking at is you have a grantor index and a grantee index. Grantor is if someone is deeding property or mortgaging property or giving some interest away. A grantee would be someone who is acquiring an interest. So there's two separate sets of books, and typically what we do is if you're buying property, we would go through ownership, find the old deeds, and then look in the grantor index to determine what mortgages, right-of-ways, easements, or other encumbrances may exist.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I kind of get a visual of you like at the Library of Congress or something, a big library. So how does that...
It's similar.
Yeah, is it? Okay.
Well, it's not quite as fancy, but yeah.
Okay. So you said, 96 current, and then the books going back for... So how far do the books go back, the records?
Oh, 1800s, maybe even earlier. Now, we typically don't have to go back that far, but they do exist. And anything prior to that, I think, is held in Raleigh. So I think you can go back, as far back as the real estate indexes were kept in North Carolina.
Typically, you said you go back how many years?
30 years is what a typical title insurance company is looking for, 30 to 35 years, and a typical mortgage company is looking for.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's talk about power of attorney involved in some of the things you do. What is that?
So North Carolina has two types of power of attorneys. There's a healthcare power of attorney and a durable power of attorney. So in relation to real estate, you're looking at more of a durable power of attorney or a legal power of attorney document. Now, those can be strictly limited to allowing somebody to sign and execute documents in relation to closing, or it could be a full durable power of attorney that would allow an individual to sign on behalf of the principal for anything, insurance purposes, Social Security purposes, pretty much anything legal that you could do for yourself, the power of attorney could do. Now, in many instances in real estate closings, someone is named as an agent. Sometimes it's even a real estate agent to be able to sign documents for a seller or a buyer.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We hear a lot about, and I get asked sometimes in a new doctor's office or something, do you have that health care, whatever, what is that again?
So it's a health care power of attorney, and basically it would enable...
But I do have that. So
well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, okay.
So basically it enables your agent, whoever that may be, to act on your behalf for health care needs, for medical procedures or health care decisions, or to obtain information that would otherwise be protected by HIPAA.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I know we set that up a long, long time ago, both my wife and I, but I just didn't remember a whole lot about it. What about in a property and buying or selling a house, and there's a divorce involved? Let's say someone is in that situation, or someone dies. And I'm thinking a couple of things here: who inherits the property, things like that. Seth.
So I'll start with the domestic issues of a divorce.
Okay.
And when you ask about who gets what, that's kind of a loaded question because there's a lot that goes into that. But typically what you see is if a husband and wife purchase property during the marriage, that's going to be considered marital property. So if there is a dissolution of the marriage, then each party is going to be entitled to one half of whatever the fair market value is of the property. And since only one can live there, it would require the property to either be sold and the proceeds split, or one person buy the other out. So there's a lot of factors that go into that. But typically, if you buy the property as a married couple, it's going to be considered marital property, and each is going to be entitled to one half.
Okay. That could get a little sticky, though, at places, I guess, couldn't it?
It can, because there's other factors that come into the dissolution of the marriage, retirement accounts, things of that nature, that could offset one party's equity in the real estate.
Okay. What about landlords and tenants and all of that, and some maybe tips in that maybe would help us?
So in North Carolina, the landlord-tenant law, if you lease property to a tenant, that creates a landlord-tenant relationship. And if at any point there's a breach of the lease terms, or if the lease has expired and the landlord simply wants to retake possession of the property, they can request that the tenant vacate. If the tenant fails to vacate after a breach or after being properly noticed to leave, the landlord would have to file what's known as a summary ejectment proceeding in small claims court in whatever county the real estate lies in. And you would go before a magistrate, and you would have to prove, the plaintiff, the landlord, would have to prove that the tenant has either breached a term of the lease, or that the lease has expired and that they have requested possession of the property and the tenant has willfully refused to vacate.
Okay. There again, that sounds. Is this something that changes? Are these laws pretty much in place, and they're been there for years?
Yeah, they are. They're pretty well established laws. Now, I'll tell you, back when COVID hit, there was some changes in the law with what was going on at the federal level that impacted the state level that precluded some landlords from being able to evict, and it created some complications. But normal circumstances, these are pretty well written in old established laws. Okay.
Doing some homework on this, I read about the North Carolina homestead laws. What is that?
When you say homestead laws, I would have to look and see what you have researched, but I'm assuming what you're talking about is if there's one person that would have a homestead right to the real estate, but without seeing what you've looked at, I'm uncertain.
Yeah, okay. In this particular case, it was talking about foreclosure and remaining in the home in certain cases and things like that. So there again, individual cases.
It would be, and you don't see that very often in North Carolina.
I hear about, in fact, I know I have a friend who has a situation with a property line, and there's a building that the neighbor, it's on on the other person's property. Right. You hear about that a lot. What happens there?
So many times when we perform a title examination, which we talked about at the beginning of the program, you may find an encroachment on a map or a plat. So if you find yourself in a situation where your property has an encroachment on it from a neighbor, or if your property has an encroachment over onto the neighbor, there's ways to correct that, but it's going to require the cooperation of both sides. Normally what would happen is you would have a surveyor go out, survey the encroachment, and then create a new boundary line and convey a portion to the neighbor convey a portion to you. If you can't get cooperation, then you may find yourself in litigation for a continuous trespass.
Oh, okay. And that happens.
It does happen,
yeah.
And it's a complicated process, and it can be quite costly.
Yeah, okay. Well, we have a couple of minutes left, but maybe some tips on real estate and some things, if this is kind of new to a lot of us, maybe that we should be aware of.
Well, one of my biggest suggestions is if you're going to buy or sell real estate, I'm a firm believer in getting a good real estate agent involved. Mm-hmm. It makes the life of the closing attorney a lot easier if you actually have an agent who's competent in the area of real estate to be able to help with the contracts, to make sure that things are moving along as they should, to make sure that information is being exchanged between the parties, and it just makes for a lot smoother transaction.
Okay. And if anyone needs more information, they can contact you at your Eden office primarily?
Sure. If anybody has any questions concerning real estate, we'll be glad to talk to them. They can come in and meet in person and try to walk them through the process. If they don't have a realtor, we are certainly willing to help prepare the contracts and facilitate any closing or any right-of-way, any transaction they need. So it's not to say that they have to have a realtor, but it certainly makes our life a lot easier on the closing end.
Sure. Okay. That's, again, Seth M. Woodall and Associates. His law firm in Eden is on Fag Drive, and in Madison on East Murphy Street. And on Facebook, your Facebook page has some good information. And I was looking at that the other day. And in our closing moment here, tell us about one of your team members there and some recognition that he's just received.
Yeah, so Sam Viscuso, he has been practicing since 2015, and I think I mentioned his name on the last broadcast. He is one of the attorneys out of the Madison office. He's won a couple of awards. Most recently, the National Trial Lawyers Association has awarded him a top 40, under 40 trial attorney in the state of North Carolina, and that what they're looking at to give that award is for the top 40 attorneys in the state who are under 40 years old in the trial setting, and he is quite competent and well deserved.
And it's good to have him a part of your team.
It is. He's been with us a few years, and he does a really good job. And I'm always happy to refer clients to him because I know he's going to do 100% of what needs to be done.
Yeah. Okay. Well, congratulations to him.
Yeah. Thank you.
And before we get away, just about a minute left, actually. You're there, of course, in that office. And how many other attorneys are in that office, Seth?
In the Madison office, we have Ben Tucker, who's been there in probably in excess of 45, 47 years. He does an excellent job. We have Sam Viscuso, who I just spoke about. In the Eden office, we have myself. Then we have Thomas Robertson and Tim Dugan and Jimmy Walker. Jimmy's been practicing close to 60 years, maybe 60 years now. Mm-hmm. And then Senator Phil Berger shares an office with us, so he's primarily a politician, but he does maintain a law office there with us.
Okay. He's in Raleigh probably more than he's in Eden.
Not even close.
Okay. All right. Seth, always great. Thank you for this good information.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your time.
I appreciate it very much. Seth Woodall in our studios today. Again, you can get more information on his Facebook page, and that's Seth M. Woodall and Associates. Offices in Eden and Madison.